Hello everybody and welcome along to a brand new video today where we're reviewing episode 8 of series 11 of Doctor Who, The Witchfinders. So yes, we're getting towards the conclusion of series 11 already, which is rather sad really. I can't believe how quickly we've flown by, even if they haven't all been particularly fantastic, but that's for later in this video. First off, of course, the Witchfinders. So going into this story, I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I didn't really have any expectations. It just didn't look on paper like it'd be my kind of story, like it'd be something I particularly enjoy. Historically stuff, witches, really isn't my kind of thing particularly at all. It didn't sound very sci-fi much in that, so it just didn't look like my cup of tea. But in reality, actually, I thought it wasn't too bad. So yes, I was pleasantly surprised to see a lot more sort of sci-fi in this story than I was expecting, of course focusing on these, what appeared to be zombies, but actually weren't. Yeah, so of course this episode's set back in the time of King James, the 1600s, and a period of history I don't think it's been explored too many times in Doctor Who previously, but of course I'm sure in the comments you'll correct me with about the 15 different episodes set during that time period, because Doctor Who fans, we love them. So yes, I also don't think witches have been covered too much in Doctor Who previously. Obviously we had these sort of witches in the Shakespeare Code back in series 3, but for this episode that wasn't really the villains weren't actually witches as such, shall we say, in this episode. Ultimately it was very much just about the idea of witch hunting or witch finding, as the Witchfinders were coined, and King James's almost obsession with taking out witches, and whatever her name is, Becca, that was it, wasn't it? It was Becca. And also with Becca, who was obviously ultimately trying to cover for herself by sort of killing all these witches, and these various different people who weren't actually witches but she believed were, and all the sort of problems around that, shall we say. Along with that we had of course King James, played by Alan Cunningham, in one of the sort of classic Doctor Who hammy performances, shall we call it. I don't think quite up there with Holmes and Nyman level, but it was pretty damn close, and I think he was it was clearly meant to be an entertaining and funny performance, and I think he really absolutely nailed that to a T. It was just quite, yes, over the top, a bit excessive in his views and everything like that, but it was just funny and enjoyable, and I really think it added a lot to the story. I think Alan Cunningham did a great job in this story and really just sort of brought King James to life in a very entertaining and fun and light way, but also had the serious moments as well, particularly those moments with the Doctor when she was sort of tied up and King James was trying to understand, sort of trying to find out whether she was telling the truth or not, or whether she was a liar, and having some quite deep conversation. And I think that was a better sort of scene for Jodie than we've had in quite a long time in Doctor Who so far this series. There hasn't been a huge amount of moments for Jodie that have been really fantastic, but I thought, again, this episode felt like a sort of better use of her talent, shall we say, maybe. She had a few more serious, sort of dark, doctory moments a little bit more, which was quite nice, but also focusing interestingly on the whole she's a woman aspect, which was quite controversial, I might say. Yes, I thought it was an interesting choice to go with that scene with sort of King James talking about how she's a woman and how therefore she can't be the leader of the pack and do anything like that, and how the Doctor's kind of making some sarky jokes about wishing she was a man and everything could be sorted. It felt like maybe a little bit on the nose, that scene, a little bit too sort of blatant and flat out, because of course they have done a good job of kind of avoiding that as a topic, not sort of actively avoiding it, but just not needing to bring it up so far in this series. But obviously with historical stories you're going to get a little bit of that, but maybe I think the dialogue was possibly a little bit sort of heavy-handed, in just the way it was phrased didn't, I think, feel absolutely perfect. Clearly it was played for laughs to a large degree, and it was quite sort of comedic in that sense, but I don't think it was maybe perfectly scripted. I thought that in this story that Becca, played by Siobhan Finneran, did a fantastic job. It really kind of was an interesting, sort of well-layered character, whereas Prince James was very played up, King James, even not Prince, King James was played up as very much a hammy, over-the-top performance of a character. You felt like sort of Becca was played very properly straight and serious, and obviously turned out to be the sort of villain because she'd been infected by the Morak and sort of been gradually turning into one of them, and that had motivated her in her plots to kill all these supposed witches. And I thought that kind of nicely came together at the end of the episode as well. It sort of all made a bit more sense than it did early on in the story, which I thought was quite nicely done. And yes, I thought that she put in a very, very good, very strong performance in sort of portraying that witch hunter, that sort of tortured witch hunter, shall we say, who's just trying to sort of, just wants to sort of survive and stay alive, and does everything she can, even killing people, to try and fight for that and save that. So I thought, yeah, that was a really, really effectively played. And yes, having that twist at the end was quite nice, that actually it was this race of aliens, the Moraks, which I don't think we've had, are new monsters of the Doctor Who as far as I know. I don't think they've been covered in anything else, particularly as a new writer, it seems highly likely. And it was just quite a nice sort of idea that they've been trapped in this prism in the Earth that no one even knew about, it just happened to be underneath there, and it had been unlocked, and therefore some of them had escaped and were trying to rebuild themselves and get back into the galaxy. So there was some sort of warrior race that killed lots of people, or bad things, they'd done some bad stuff or something along those lines, and were just trying to sort of escape from their prison that they're presumably trapped in for eternity. And it was just sort of how that then Becca got infected by one of them who was sort of trying to escape from this prison, and then the Doctor and Co having to try and lock them back down in there again. I thought that was, yes, a nice little twist, because it seemed like they were just these bizarre zombie thingies, or this mud monster that we had no idea what it was, and actually it was a proper race of aliens that were just trying to escape a prison, and the Doctor had to lock them all back in. And I thought that was, yes, a really sort of nice little twist towards the end, and gave it enough, I think, sci-fi in this story to make it an interesting Doctor Who story rather than just an interesting piece of historical drama. And then, of course, ultimately the Doctor and Co saving the day, and still with some time for some funny moments with King James as well, right at the end of this story. And I mean, obviously King James was very much stole the show, shall we say, to a large degree in this story with Alan Cunningham. Obviously, I've already said how good he was, and I think he had some great scenes with all the sort of main characters of this story, with Ryan, with Graham, not so much with Yaz. Yaz felt a little bit separated again. She was obviously more involved with the young woman who I genuinely can't remember her name. But that whoever she was, her and Yaz they got a bit involved to sort of a little bit more in this story, and it did feel a bit like Yaz was lacking in stuff to do once again, which of course has been a common problem in this series among other things, which is a little bit unfortunate. But it was nice to have sort of Graham and Ryan getting a nice bit of focus in this story. Graham had some great scenes and great moments and fun times during this story, and I think that sort of having to play that role as the leader of the Witchfinders was quite sort of fun to watch, and him pretending to know all about this and trying to sort of be that sort of scheming, planning character, trying to work out, so almost trying to take off the Doctor, I think, to a large degree, and trying to sort of think what would the Doctor do in this situation, and trying to play on that. And I think it's quite sort of great to see how he's developed through the series. We saw a bit of it in Kablam last week, and I think it just continued into this story as well. And so overall, I did really, really enjoy this story, a lot more than I was expecting. I mean, it's certainly not one of my all-time favourite episodes of the show or anything like that, but I was also pleasantly surprised with it. It seemed the general fan reception was just better than I think anybody expected going in. It just, well, for me at least, I felt didn't really have a lot of potential for it. It didn't really have much going for it, that it was likely to be a great story, but actually I think people generally enjoyed it a lot more, and the same it was for me as well. But I would like to hear from you guys. What did you think of this story? Was it a sort of a highlight of the series so far? Was it just the continuation of solid but not spectacular episodes? Was it a complete disappointment? I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this episode. But other than that, guys, do remember to hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and I'll see you again very, very soon for another one. Goodbye. During this review, I have been stalked by Megan.
Hello! How you doing? I know you're already here for me.
Yeah, except we're not. So yeah, she was just felt an urge to watch, and so she just wanted you to see her in the video, really. So there you go, there she is. Bye!
Bye. Bye.